There is a village in Ghana called Soga. It sits at the edge of a forest so old that the trees at its heart have no names in any language still spoken. The people of Soga do not enter that forest after dark. They do not enter the deep parts at all. And every child born in that village, from the time they are old enough to understand words, is taught one rule, just one, before they are taught anything else. If you are in the forest and a stranger calls your name, do not answer. Once upon a time, in the village of Soga, there lived a young hunter named Kofi. He was 22 years old, lean and broad-shouldered, the kind of young man who had never yet been truly frightened. He wore a simple dark green shirt and khaki trousers tucked into brown leather boots, and he carried a worn canvas hunting bag over his left shoulder. He had hunted the outer forest alone since he was 16, and nothing had ever reached for him from the dark. He knew the forest well enough that he had stopped being afraid of it. His grandmother Ajoa did not share this confidence. She was a small, thin old woman, white hair tucked under a faded blue head wrap, dark skin lined deeply around her eyes, wrists thin as dry sticks, wearing a yellow and brown printed cloth over a plain white blouse. She sat on her low wooden stool outside their clay house the morning he left, watching him the way she sometimes watched the sky before rain. He kissed the top of her head. She caught his wrist. "The forest is hungry for voices," she said quietly. "If a stranger calls your name in there, keep your mouth shut." He smiled the way you smile at something familiar. "I know, Grandma. You know the words," she said. "You do not know what they mean." He shouldered his bag and walked toward the trees. He could feel her eyes on his back all the way to the tree line. He did not turn around. He found a bushback trail around midday and followed it northeast. The tracks were fresh, the animal was big, and he was so focused on the shot he was building in his mind that he did not notice the soil beneath his feet had turned gray until he stopped and looked down. He had crossed into Asa Krom, the land the earth forgot, the place no hunter in Soga entered. The bushback was gone, not fled, simply gone. When he turned to go back, the path was gone too. His own footprints in the grey soil led in a perfect circle that closed right where he was standing. He walked that circle twice. It led nowhere but back to him. Then the silence hit him. No wind, no birds, no insects, just his own breathing, enormous and wrong in all that quiet. Then, from the trees to his left, Kofi, a man's voice, warm, calm, familiar in a way he could not explain. He pressed his lips together and stood still, his grandmother's face rising in his mind like a warning. "Kofi, is that you?" He said nothing. His heart hammered. Sweat ran down his neck, even though the air was cold. Then the voice came from directly behind him, right at his shoulder. "Kofi!" He spun, nothing there. He ran, crashing through branches, boots pounding grey soil, until he had to stop, heaving against a tree so wide 5 men could not have circled it. The voice came from all sides now, patient and soft. Kofi, why won't you answer me? God forgive him. He opened his mouth and said, Who are you? The forest exhaled, a long, slow release from every tree and root and buried thing. The temperature dropped sharply, the grey light went darker, and the last faint path unwound itself like a thread being pulled and disappeared. He was not just lost, he was taken. 30 days passed in that forest, and each one was worse than the last. He ate palm nuts and grey lizards caught under roots. He drank from a stream that ran black at night. By the 5th day, his boots had soaked through so completely, he pulled them off and left them. He walked barefoot through Asase Krom on cold grey soil, his green shirt tearing a little more each day on branches until it hung from him in rags. The voices never stopped. His grandmother's voice, his mother's voice, dead 13 years, but perfect, here down to the small softness on the first syllable of his name. He kept his mouth clamped shut and did not answer. On the 9th night, he heard his own voice come out of the dark, saying his own 3 words back at him, Who are you? And he sat on the grey soil and wept. By the 29th night, he lay down and made peace quietly with the fact that he was going to die here. He thought of his grandmother on her stool in the morning light and closed his eyes. When he opened them, there was a fire. Beside it sat an old man, perhaps 70 years old, long-faced, deep-set eyes, short white hair close to his skull, skin dark and dry as old wood. He wore a loose white smock and held across his lap a tall carved staff, dark and smooth as something handled for 100 years. He watched Kofi with calm, patient eyes. This was opinion. You are still alive, the old man said. Most do not last 20 days. Kofi sat up slowly, his torn shirt hanging off one shoulder, bare feet dark with forest dirt. Who are you? You can call me Opanion. He ran one thumb along the carved shaft of his staff. I know the way back to your village, but you came here with a debt. 3 words you gave the forest. Nothing here is free. I will take you home under 3 conditions. You will not sleep until we reach the village. You will not look behind you for anything, no matter what you hear. And you will carry whatever I give you without asking what it is. And if I refuse, you lie back down. Kofi thought of his grandmother's eyes. I agree, he said. They walked. The forest made room for Opanion and his staff tapping the grey soil in a steady rhythm. But the forest tested every condition. An hour in, the smell of his grandmother's groundnut soup drifted from a clearing ahead. And through the trees, he could see her lying asleep beside a fire, wrapped in her yellow and brown cloth, white head wrap, thin wrists. He stopped walking. Every part of him pulled toward that clearing. You will not sleep, Opanion said quietly, still walking. Kofi turned away and walked, and the smell of home faded behind him. Later, in the deepest dark of night, his mother's voice came from behind him, her exact voice, the one he had last heard when he was 8 years old. Kofi, my son, just turn around. I have been waiting. He stopped, his hands pressed together in front of his chest the way she had taught him to pray. Opanyen's staff kept tapping ahead, steady and unhurried. Kofi walked. His mother's voice thinned and disappeared like smoke. At two baobab trees whose roots had grown together like old fingers, Opanyen reached into his smock and held out a bag, woven cloth, tied with bark cord the size of a man's head. It moved with a slow, rhythmic breathing. Kofi took it without a word. It was warm and heavy against his chest and made a sound on the edge of hearing, almost the shape of his name. He held it and walked. On the fourth day, light broke through the trees, real honey-colored afternoon light. Through a gap in the canopy, he saw the red dirt path, the cooking smoke, heard a child's voice and a woman singing, Soga. Opanyen's hand came down on his shoulder. The last thing, the old man said. In that afternoon light, Kofi noticed clearly what he had half seen for 4 days. Opanyen cast no shadow, none at all. He stood in direct sunlight and left nothing behind him on the ground. Your answer is in that bag, Opanyen said. The 3 words you gave the forest, preserved and waiting. Take it into the village and it comes home with you. Into your sleep, your children's voices, your own mouth in the night. The forest will hear and it will collect again. He paused. Or put it down here and go home lighter, without the part of your voice you gave away. Kofi crouched and placed the bag gently at the base of a tree. He stood. Opanyen was gone. No footprints, no shadow. Just the bag at the root, rising and falling, rising and falling. Kofi walked into the light. His grandmother was on her stool. She saw him, barefoot, hollow-cheeked, shirt torn to rags, eyes older than 30 days could explain, and she did not run or cry out. She walked to him slowly and stopped 3 feet away, reading his face. Then she held him shaking. You gave it something, she whispered into his shoulder. 3 words, he said. I left them at the edge. She pulled back and looked at him. Then she nodded, slow and final. Good, good. That night, the village celebrated, and Kofi ate his first full meal in 30 days. But his grandmother did not sleep. She sat in the corner of the dark room and listened, because she had lived long enough to know that the things you put down do not always stay where you put them. And just before dawn, at the base of a tree at the edge of Asa Krom, a tall old man in a white smock emerged from the forest. He carried a long dark carved staff and struck it against the ground with each 3rd step. He crouched at the root where the bag sat and opened it with one slow hand. Kofi's voice came out. Young, warm and clear, it settled into the old man's chest like a compass needle finding north. He stood. He looked toward the village, toward the cooking smoke and the rooftops and the red dirt path. And he began to walk. They say the forest does not want your body. It has enough bodies. Every tree in Asa Krom grew on something. What it wants is your voice, because your voice is the only thing that knows the way home. And what the forest keeps, it sends back. So if you are ever in those trees and you hear someone call your name, someone warm, someone familiar, someone who sounds exactly like the person you love most in the world, keep your mouth shut. Walk home. Do not look back. And pray that whatever is behind you does not already know the way.